Vitamin ABB, Barry Oakley. Trust me, I'm a doctor.
Mountain Jam is my favorite Almond Brothers song, and it's more than a song. It's just a big giant improvisation. And one of my favorite things to do when I listen to that track is I call it, it's sort of like catching a wave of what Barry's doing. Barry is often like answering something typically that the soloist is doing, Duane or Dickie. Sometimes he's saying something that the other one answers, and then he continues to answer. But what I like to do is I catch sort of Barry's flow and just listen to the bass line and how it moves up, around, over, under, and throughout Mountain Jam. It's it's something I've been doing for a long time. It's just that piece, and then what it'll do eventually for me is I'll hear something Duane does, and I start listening just to what Duane parts are doing, or I'll hear something, Dickie does, etc., etc. Joe Dan Petty, also a bass player. This quote about Barry Oakley: Barry was probably the best rock and roll bass player I've ever seen. Even when he was playing in The Second Coming, Barry played a lot like a guitar player. He played a lot of notes, but he was always very precise, extremely sure-footed, extremely tasteful. He had probably the best imagination I've heard in a bass player. He could really step out with those guitar players and not stomp them, not walk all over what they were doing, but just ride underneath them. He was an extremely aware musician. Love that quote from Joe Dan Petty, and it really fits. The guy who helped set a standard for psychedelic lead bass, what Barry Oakley did in the Almond Brothers is very similar and taken directly from the Lesh of the Grateful Dead and Jack Cassidy of Jefferson Airplane. Barry loved both those players, and I'm not sure he ever saw them live before they formed the Almond Brothers band. So Barry was learning from records. The three of them set a really great standard for rock bass in an improvisational situation. Just phenomenal stuff. Sidney Smith photo and Play All Night, specifically because it's my boy Troy's favorite photo of Barry Oakley, and I quoted him in the caption. Smile on his face reflects the joy that I feel when I hear him play. I think that's absolutely true when you look at this photo. Joe Dan mentioned Barry approached bass as a guitar player. That's absolutely true. Barry actually was a very, very good lead guitar player. He made his name as a teenager in Chicago, playing the blues clubs of Chicago. Only reason he moved to bass was because Tommy Rowe, the Romans, Tommy Rowe's backing band, needed a bass player. I think their bass player got drafted or quit the band, something like that. That's what actually brought Barry Oakley south in the first place. The gig with the Romans, and it also moved him to bass. Soon he finds his way down to Southwest Florida, Sarasota area, and that's when he meets Dickie Betts. And they join forces, a band called the Blues Messengers, and then The Second Coming, which Joe Dan referenced here.